Our special Sunday night edition of Special Report continues now. President Trump has a lot to get done if he's to fulfill his campaign promises. Tonight, Chief Political Correspondent Carl Cameron goes down the list.
President Donald Trump has indicated Monday will be his first full workday, including a number of aggressive executive actions to begin implementing his agenda.
Thank you very much.
Friday, President Trump made good on two campaign promises. His first, an Obamacare executive order saying until the Affordable Care Act is repealed and replaced, all federal agencies should take, quote, all actions consistent with law to minimize the unwarranted economic and regulatory burdens of the act. Separately, White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus issued an executive memorandum freezing all last-minute regulations ordered by former President Obama until all are thoroughly reviewed by the Trump administration.
On day one.
During his campaign, candidate Trump developed a lengthy list of first-day promises.
On day one, we will begin working on an impenetrable, physical, tall, powerful, beautiful southern border wall. According to federal data, there are at least 2 million, think of it, criminal aliens now inside of our country. 2 million people, criminal aliens. We will begin moving them out day one, as soon as I take office, day one.
Trump also pledged to stop all federal funding for sanctuary cities, where illegal immigration laws are not enforced. Some day one candidate promises may prove difficult for the new president.
My first day in office, I will immediately suspend the admission of Syrian refugees.
He also promised to halt immigration from countries where vetting for terrorists is difficult. He plans to vehemently defend the Second Amendment.
I will get rid of gun-free zones on schools, and you have to. And on military bases, my first day it gets signed, okay? My first day.
He also promised executive orders on trade. Aides say one will set in motion U.S. plans to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Another will declare that if the North American Free Trade Agreement is not renegotiated, the U.S. will withdraw from it, too. Candidate Trump made several more first-day proposals, including lifting restrictions on development of coal, oil, and natural gas, and finalizing the Keystone XL pipeline. In Washington, Carl Cameron, Fox News.
Let's bring back our panel. Okay, first 100 days, Charlie, obviously a focus first on Obamacare.
Sure, and this is actually one of the reasons that I'm sort of perplexed why Democrats are holding up Tom Price, because for Health and Human Services Secretary, because if their argument is going to be, what they're hoping is that, okay, this is all messed up, but Donald Trump can try to fix it, and it's still going to be broken. It's still going to be messed up. So why muddy the waters by holding up Tom Price? Just give the, Republicans what the tools that Donald Trump says he wants in order to address Obamacare. It is going to be, and that is going to be something, I think, that at the end, once they finally come up with something, a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives are not going to be happy with it. Donald Trump is not a conservative. He is a populist, and he is a deal maker, and he is going to if Republicans don't wind up working with him on Obamacare, he will work with Democrats on it. AB.
Well, it's interesting about tomorrow and the first week, because there's a lot that he can do that will sound, he can stack up a huge number of stuff that will sound like it was really a big deal that really won't be. There are emissions guidelines, for instance. They're agency directives, and they're not binding. They're sort of, you should follow this. It will not change at the end of the day emissions regulations, but it'll sound great. At the same time, there are new fracking regulations he can rip up, and that's actually substantive. So there's a range of sort of real substance in what he can do, but he can certainly come up with a huge number. The big stuff, the Iran deal, not enforcing the Obamacare mandate. Is he going to do the? Some of them are really hard to do. They're going to require more time.
They're laying the groundwork already by passing this. By signing this.
Right, but
executive order kind of prelude.
They're very worried about the lack of a plan B in the replacement, and right now there isn't one, even though Trump said last weekend that there is. And Republican senators who are on this have not been speaking to the transition team about it. Everyone's in the dark. So this scramble for a replacement plan is of utmost concern, obviously, and they don't want to rip up too much and set things in motion in terms of a repeal that actually further tanks the exchanges like we've talked about without the backup plan. So in terms of these sort of the big things, the Cuba deal, there's a lot he can do this week, but will be interesting to see which ones he pulls the trigger on.
Taxes, another huge one that is in line. Do they get to it quickly?
It's going to be difficult, and the thing that Donald Trump needs to be careful of, as President Obama wasn't careful of and then suffered losses electorally for, is over-promising how much you can actually get done in the first 100 days or even within your presidency. Now, that doesn't mean he can't do a lot, doesn't mean he can't come in and change Washington in the ways that he wants to, but this is not going to be an easy task overall. And when you listen to the speech that he gave, he says, we will face challenges and different hardships, but we'll get the deal done. And it's going to be a battle between Donald Trump and the Republican Party, which has been arguing for years that we're overspending, that the national debt is too high, that deficits actually matter. A lot of the conservatives that have come into the House and the Senate over the past few elections, they're small government conservatives, and so they're not going to want to overspend without having things paid for. So Republicans are going to be in a tough place politically because they have a chance of looking like obstructionists against a Republican president here, but they also have a lot of chances to do the things that they've been saying they wanted to do for years that Donald Trump bolstered on the campaign trail and, as we've seen, coming into the first couple days of his presidency.
Tom.
One of the things I think you'll see very quickly is, in an effort to provide outreach to those Republicans, again, that Katie notes, the Paul Ryan caucus, right, that it is the restriction of government spending, wanting to reform entitlements. He's not going to do that. How does he reach out to them after a speech on trade that really is antithetical to most sort of Republicans in Congress? I think what he'll do is double down on this push to unleash the energy sector, right, that he'll take executive actions on the flip side of what President Obama did on things like the Dakota Access Pipeline, Keystone, move very quickly there, because the reason that will, number one, it will create political unity in the Republican Party, but it will also, I think, have a sizable economic impact, because when you delve into the details of those big capital investment projects, the quiet story of the Obama administration, or not so quiet towards the end, was the amount of litigation, hesitancy and delay they put in there, and the deterrent effect that had on future investment. If he addresses that, I think that business community that's a bit unsure about him gets excited.
I do think that there's a better relationship between the leaders in Congress and Trump than people give him credit for, or them credit for, and that they can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Sure. And it's a more honest relationship, I think. It's not, for the past two presidencies, we've seen when a Democrat holds the White House and both chambers of Congress, Congress gives them whatever they want. Same with Republicans. And I think that the fact that, some people think it's kind of ugly and they're airing their dirty laundry, but it is a very honest relationship, and Donald Trump does have to win over Republicans. One of the things I think is the most important lessons from his inaugural address is the fact that Donald Trump is not done campaigning. This campaign is not over for him, and he is going to, on all of these things that he wants to get done in the first 100 days or beyond, he's going to go out into the country and he's going to campaign in people's districts, in people's states, be they Republicans or Democrats, and he's going to push these things, and I think he'll be very effective at it.
Early weeks, he also promised, Katie, that he'd have a cybersecurity plan from his national security team.
Which is very important. This is something that the intelligence community has been asking for years. The Obama administration seems to have ignored the requests for a bolstering of our cybersecurity. We've been warning for years that this is the next front in not only the global war on terror, but in combating bad state actors. And so it's good for him to accept that that is a threat facing the country, and it's an important part of his national security promises to make sure that America has the tools it needs to protect us from our enemies.
All right, first of all, down the road, real quick, do they get a replacement plan for Obamacare?
I think they do, absolutely.
Okay, that's all you get.
Just a question of time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. But I think that
I knew it was coming.
I think that what Donald Trump is saying when he said what he said about they already have one is he's trying to put pressure on Republicans. He's saying, get one before we meet.